Do I have any past trials of any notable jury selection process? Not offhand. However, what I will say is there was one trial. Here's the key thing about being on the jury. Some people actually want to be on the jury, especially if it's a high-profile case. They might want to get off of work, might want to write a book at some point. Then you have others who just don't want to be a part of it. And so the key to picking a jury or being on a jury or not is whether or not that person is biased one way or the other. So if I'm somebody who wants to get off of a jury, I'm going to answer questions in a way it's clear that I favor one side or the other. And so if I'm favoring the defense, then I'm pretty sure that the prosecutor is going to do whatever he or she can to get me off the case now. And the same thing vice versa. And so I've had a particular trial in the past where it might have been 6 or 7 jurors in a row, maybe even more than that, who just flat out just said, look, I hate the police. So I can't look at the evidence fairly. I can't be impartial. I'm just telling you guys now. So basically, keep me if you want. Then, of course, the judge let them go. So I had there's probably 7 or 8 people in a row who either said I'm pro-police or I hate the police, to the point where each and every one of them just said, thank you for your service. Thank you for your time. You can go ahead and go home. That's probably the most memorable one. I never had a case where back to back, someone came up with a reason to quickly be sent home. I'll tell you what was my most memorable trial, and which could have been a cooperating witness. And this is back during my prosecutor days, and it was actually the very first murder trial that I did. In this particular case, and I'm going to try to get to the point on this. You had 2 individuals who were known to be big-time gangbangers and drug dealers who were both going back and forth over the same woman. For many times, they had interactions, shootouts, fights. But on this particular occasion, the defendant in this case one day was walking down the alley and walking up to the house where the victim in this case, when I was a prosecutor, the victim in the case was kind of like, why is this guy walking up here? We know we got beef. What is he doing walking up to me? So the guy walks up to the victim in this case, walks up to his driveway, extends his hand. Let's let bygones be bygones. Let's squash the beef. And they shook hands. The defendant steps back a couple steps after shaking hands, pulls out a 9mm and shoots him 15 times. In that case, the victim's cousin saw the whole thing, and he was sitting in a car across the street. Long story short, the victim's cousin ended up leaving town. Never cooperated with us when I was a prosecutor. He saw the whole thing, saw his cousin get murdered cold-blooded in daylight in front of him, but was unwilling to cooperate, left town, and the family never heard from him again. The reason why it was so memorable is because I came really close with the aunt and the grandmother in that case, and we had a close relationship with them, had a lot of experience and dealt with them throughout the trial. And every day at the trial, on one side of the courtroom, just them two would sit, the aunt and the grandmother, and then on the other side would be the defendant's family, friends, packed on his side, only 2 people on the other side. When they read the verdict, they found the defendant not guilty in that case. And you can hear the defense side, everybody get up celebrating, and the judge had to tell them, quiet down, sit down. And every day after the trial, during the week of the trial or 2 weeks, the court will always allow the victim's 2 family members to walk out first to keep them separated as they would leave the courtroom. And on this day, you can hear a pin drop. Having the grandmother and the aunt walk out crying and everything else being quiet, it was the most memorable time because, one, I had developed a close relationship with them. It was my very first murder trial I ever did, and I lost. But that affected me so much in terms of how I approach cases moving forward, especially with the level of preparation and work that goes into it, because I would never want a family member to be leaving out of the courtroom in that same way, and I know or I didn't feel like I didn't give it my all. So that was the most memorable in dealing with a witness who could have cooperated, who was a family member, but decided not to. Has my past relationships with people in the law school and the practice of law been beneficial in a case of mine that I've had? I would say with anything in life, relationships are important. I've always been mindful of how I treat people, because you treat people the way you want to be treated. And so I would say maybe having relationships, whether or not it's at the DA's office, the prosecutor's office, whether it's the U.S. attorney in federal cases or dealing with state cases, having good relationships can be beneficial in maybe helping you get the case resolved in the manner or in a way that your client would like for it to be resolved. Some people, not everybody wants to go to a trial. Some people want the best deal they can get. Some people just want to stay out of jail. And so sometimes having good relationships with people across the aisle, people in the criminal justice system can help facilitate maybe getting an offer a lot quicker or a lot better than maybe someone who does not have that relationship. So relationships, like anything in the practice of law, very important and instrumental in the practice of law.